So turning to the Woods projects, we really see this as a new frontier for discovery. We've generated 5 projects covering around 40,000 hectares across that northern rim, covering it's noted there's a GRS set, and that's the Grease River Shear Zone. All those properties are within 30 kilometers of the basin margin. We believe that's important not to step out too far from the basin to ensure we're targeting those unconformity basement type deposits. The GRS set is very underexplored. It's only northeast of Fond du Lac. There's only 20 historical drill holes, despite like a huge endowment of surface uranium that was picked up through historical prospecting. The geology looks good. The geology and the structure of this is a major structural zone, and there is mention of graphites, through that area from the historical work that was done. But obviously, a lot of that graphite is not going to outcrop. It's going to sit in the valleys, and those simply valley areas haven't been targeted. There's lots of showings here, as we see these little blue dots. So lots of uranium endowment in the area, including the Fond du Lac deposit, which is really a classic unconformity related basement hosted deposit. It sits just on the edge of the basin, so there's some of the mineralization is in the sandstone, and then it does have some roots into the basement, and it's really along that structure which forms our primary target zone. The Grease River Shear Zone is receiving more interest now that obviously uranium prices are high, and it's fully staked with a number of operators there looking to do work. So we're very pleased to have acquired a dominant land position there. And like Strike and Mermac, we're going to look to talk to other parties about this project. There has been a lot of inbounds on that, so we're confident a deal can be reached, and we can see some work progressing on those projects in hopefully the near term. What's really exciting about this area is it's in Saskatchewan, and is the highest uranium lake sediment anomalies. Shown here on the left is the Geological Survey of Canada, the lake sediment database, which is plotted to show where the high uranium values are. That data set was collected on lakes. There's obviously lots and lots of lakes up in northern Saskatchewan, and they were able to achieve a roughly like 2 by 2 kilometer spacing across the shield areas. And what I mean by that is that the Athabasca Basin itself wasn't sampled, because naturally it's just sandstone on surface and the targets are beneath, they're at depth. But the shield areas show those high anomalies, and what's very noticeable is when you put the major structures of northern Saskatchewan on that, there's a strong correlation between the lake anomalies and these structures. And we can see some of that along the Grease River Shear Zone, but also we see where there's anomalies, and there are deposits in the Beeville, in the Uranium City area, three mines there. And the Grease River Shear area has a huge anomalism related to it, but just as I said, very little exploration and the potential to find deposits in that area. This data set in the middle here is the same data set, just plotted on a different scale, just to emphasize that the highest anomalies in Saskatchewan sit within our project area. A zoom in on the far right here, just showing over our Aspen project, it in fact is the highest lake sediment value there of 989 ppm. And more detailed sampling of lakes by historical operators have got values up to around 2000 ppm. So there's a huge endowment of uranium in those lakes. For comparison, mines in Namibia such as Husab and Rossing, they are mined at grades of 350 to 500 ppm. So that just gives you a degree of the anomalism in this area. And the question is, where's the source? There's a question if it's from background rocks. There are some granites that are slightly elevated, but the shear endowment suggests there could be good potential for discoveries in that area, and it's very underexplored. Just zooming in on the projects here to show some of that endowment in the area from surface prospecting. Numerous occurrences have been recognized by historical operators. This was all done using radiometrics. Anomalies were found, they got boots on the ground, and they found mineralization in a variety of settings. Some of that was vein hosted, which is very promising from a basement hosted potential, what we're chasing. In other words, there's hydrothermal uranium that's into these fractures, cross faults, etc., like we see at Strike and Mermac. Also, here's a lot of uranium occurrences associated with the pegmatites, and at grades that are equivalent to or greater than those mines I mentioned in Namibia. So we also see potential here for Rossing style mineralization, and we're looking at different settings in these areas where you could develop appropriate tonnages. We know that the grades are there, but where can we find the tonnages where there could be something meaningful? So that's another opportunity on the project, is not just the basement hosted mineralization, but also the Rossing style mineralization. And then also to note just some of the rare earth element occurrences in these areas, certainly grades that are exciting. And those occurrences were found during uranium prospecting, but not really followed up from a rare earth element perspective. So some additional opportunity on the REE side. Unexplored, as I've explained, and there's really no appropriate data sets to target these high-grade basement hosted deposits. And we can jump to that on the next slide. I'll give some clarity on that. But just 3 drill holes over our entire package here, those 3 at the Spruce project. And then favorable geology and structure. The Grease River Shear Zone, major structural crustal scale feature. We know all the high-grade basement hosted deposits sit along these types of structures, and very little, as I said, very little exploration. At Aspen, there have been a lot of graphitic rocks noted, but obviously the full extent of those is not known. So what is needed is EM surveying to determine those. Now, historically shown in this figure here is some of the EM that has been flown, and it's a type of EM called VLF EM, which was flown in 2007, and that's a very shallow penetrating type of survey. It's not really effective at picking out these basement conductors. So this data set doesn't really help advance exploration for what we're targeting. There has been a recent high resolution helicopter-borne Excite survey. It's quite similar to VTEM, but it just shows the disparity, the difference between that type of deeper penetrating survey versus the shallow survey. And on this adjacent ground, it's held by Forum Energy, and it's under option to Traction Uranium. They have started to map out some conductors there, some which appear to go onto our Spruce project. So we're confident with additional VTEM surveying across our properties, we'll be able to pick up more conductors for targeting and chase that same model that's being pursued at Mermac and Strike. There's also a large area of the Pine project here that hasn't had any modern radiometric surveying. Historical surveys were on a 5 kilometer spacing, so the opportunity to also see some surface, pick up some new surface uranium anomalies there, and again chase some of those Rossing type targets that might outcrop. So the envisaged work program going forward would be the VTEM survey along with magnetics, and that would give us an initial data set for targeting anomalous areas. Could be followed up with ground gravity, as we've done at Mermac, geochemical sampling, as well as prospecting and some mapping, and then moving quite quickly, we think within at least, or at most, a year, exploration drilling.